En primer lugar, queríamos compartir con vosotros un vídeo que grabó amablemente el consejero delegado del GIIN, que es Investment Network, que hace muy poquito publicaron su último informe dimensionando el mercado de la inversión de impacto a nivel mundial. Así que bueno, queríamos compartir con vosotros este vídeo y esperamos que os guste. Dentro vídeo, por favor.
Hello, I'm Amit Bouri, the CEO of the GIIN, and I'm very happy to be here with participants in the impact ecosystem in Spain. At this event organized by the Spain NAB, The Impact Journey, Reshaping Capitalism, as a celebration of the first anniversary of the addition of Spain to the Global Steering Group. Thank you for inviting me to join your event. It's great to see the ecosystem in Spain growing and evolving quickly with new initiatives emerging. I understand that a new study has just been launched about the characteristics and size of the Spanish market, which I'm told is now in the region of 229 million euros from a venture capital and private equity perspective. This study gives an overview of the Spanish impact investing market and will be helpful in contributing to its expansion. So welcome to everyone. Today's virtual format of this gathering highlights the way that our world is changing around us. I'd like to briefly address the urgent concerns of the moment. Then, as we think about our future, I'll describe the headline findings of the Global Impact Investing Network's 10th Annual Impact Investor Survey. Like many of you, I've spent the past months following the protests around the world. I am deeply troubled by the persistent racial discrimination that has sparked this outcry. Of course, amidst this moment of racial reckoning, the coronavirus pandemic continues. And like many of you, I'm contemplating how we can help build back toward a more resilient future. Today, I am more convinced than ever that impact and sustainable investors can help lead the way into our next normal. A new status quo that thinks about investment capital in an entirely new way. A new status quo that honors the role of all stakeholders, from workers to the planet itself. Even in this era of widespread civil unrest and global pandemic, other existential concerns still loom. The climate crisis is growing continually more dire. The global inequality crisis is threatening lives in other ways. This year's 5th anniversary of the adoption of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Accord is marked by insufficient progress. As you know, not a single major economy is on track to meet its climate goal. Meanwhile, around the world, we face a crisis of distrust in business and government, the very leaders we need to guide us toward progress. But if crisis exacerbates our most troubling trends, I am convinced that it can also amplify our most encouraging trends as well. The growth and increasing sophistication that I've witnessed in the impact investing community over the previous 10 years gives me hope. The impact investing community is ready to forge the path toward our next normal. But to do that, we need to understand where we are right now. The GIIN's annual Impact Investor Survey, which we just released, is the preeminent report on the state of the industry. This 10th anniversary survey includes respondents from almost organizations, more than ever before. This year's report updates the GIIN's estimate of the size of the global impact investing market. We've determined that the market is now worth $715 billion US. That updated figure is larger than last year's estimate, a reflection of both a much richer data set our research team used to extrapolate and of natural market growth. Among the sample of repeat survey respondents in 2016 and again this year, we see a compound annual growth rate of assets under management at 17%. But as big as the impact investing market is today, it needs to be a lot bigger. We need to move capital at a vastly different scale. And for that to happen, we need to engage far more investors, including helping mainstream investors understand that their money can do so much more than just make more money. Their money can help create the social and environmental change they want to see in the world. This second finding, aside from the impressive market sizing number, our survey shows growing depth and sophistication in the market as well. Almost 7 out of every 10 respondents said the market is, quote, growing steadily. And just as many say the financial attractiveness of impact investing relative to other investment strategies is part of their motivation. Over the past 10 years, they see the greatest progress being made on research about market activity and trends, availability of professionals with relevant skills, and sophistication of impact measurement and management. Those practices, known as IMM practices, translate investors' impact intentions into real-world results and track their outcomes. Respondents cited IMM practice as a primary area in which the impact investing market has matured. 10 years ago, most annual survey respondents used their own proprietary IMM systems. Now, most have aligned around a handful of common frameworks and systems, including the Sustainable Development Goals and the GIIN's own IRIS Plus. That increasing standardization is starting to make it easier to compare results. But respondents want to see more, because comparison and validation of impact performance can help address fears of so-called impact washing, which is over-claiming about an investment's impact. Finally, I'm glad to see our survey confirming that impact investors hold a positive outlook about the future, despite our current headwinds. In a special recent follow-up questionnaire about the COVID-19 pandemic, most respondents, 56%, told us that they are unlikely to change the volume of capital they had planned to commit to impact investments this year. And 15% say they will likely commit more capital than planned. Clearly, impact investors are a committed group. But we're not just building an impact investing market. We are building a movement with impact investors standing shoulder to shoulder with venture philanthropists, with investors focused on ESG criteria, with thematic investors, with sustainable investors of all stripes. At the GIIN, we envision a fast approaching future when social and environmental factors are integrated into investment decisions simply by default, as the normal way of doing things. Impact investments will be a viable option for every investor, from retail to institutional. Businesses and investors will hold themselves accountable to multiple sets of stakeholders, including shareholders, of course, but also workers, customers, suppliers, communities, and local and global environments. The outdated concept of externalities will be relegated to history, with finance theory equally well accounting for risk, return, and impact. In this way, our reimagination of the future goes well beyond impact investing to all of investing, and indeed to the economic system as a whole. Over the past year, my colleagues at the GIIN and I have been thinking about this need for a new capitalism, with a focus on making sense of the growing but still largely disconnected conversation on this topic. We've launched a new podcast called Next Normal, with the goal of giving shape to that path forward by interviewing leading luminaries and those who are challenging our thinking. In the past few days, you may have been seeing imagery and messaging connected to the Imperative 21 Reset campaign, pushing for a reset to capitalism on the pages of the leading newspapers around the world, on the tickers at stock exchanges, and across social media. All these efforts are working in symphony, aiming to chart the role of businesses and investors in moving to a more just, inclusive, and sustainable economy. They're striving to convene the conversations and to align the actions that will move us toward that reimagined world we're all seeking. The impact investing community has made tremendous progress in recent years. And yet, from almost any vantage point, it's also clear that many global challenges have become only more pressing. It is impossible to overstate the urgency of the problems we face. But I also believe that impact investing proves that fragments of our reimagined future are already showing up here, in the present. The work of this industry is evidence that the future is already happening. And I'm convinced that our community can help lead the way toward the more inclusive, more sustainable, more just world that so many imagine. That we can build for tomorrow the next normal we are envisioning today. Thank you so much for having me at this special event, and I applaud all the efforts of this group. Thank you.